Here's the talk in the industry, behind the scenes in the industry that you're not hearing about. But it has a lot to do with real estate fail. It's very important to know, especially if you either own multifamily or even any other kind of commercial investment real estate, or you plan on owning it. Welcome to the Heartland Multifamily Show, the shorter, more profitable path to multifamily ownership and investing. Everybody, it's Darren with Trot. Hey, Trot.
Darren, how are you today?
We're doing really good because this is another fine episode of the Heartland Multifamily Show, the place
For all things multifamily.
And today we're talking about the real estate fail. And we'll get into what we mean by that here in just a minute. We've got a couple of things to cover that I think are real eye-openers, especially not only now, but as we go into the next year. I mean, we're almost up to another year here pretty soon before you know it. And a lot of other things going on out there. So let's start the podcast, the Real Estate Fail podcast, with some information. But before we do, make sure that if you like what we talk about, what Trot and I talk about on this episode, if it resonates you, make sure you click that subscribe button below. And there's some other really good pieces of content that come to you at, we're not charging for it. There's some good ebooks and some other content you want to get your hands on as a result of that. If you like what we're talking about, click that subscribe button and just grab some more content. Okay. So we're talking about real estate fail, and the first place we go to is, what is that, Trot?
Wall Street Journal.
Wall Street Journal.
By the way, have you looked into this guy at all?
I've not checked him out.
He's awesome.
He is?
Yeah.
I've just read the headlines, and he's pretty pro-capitalism, right? Pretty pro-capitalism guy, and Trot's talking about the Argentinian leader, Javier, is it Milei?
I don't know
Milei?
his last name. No.
We should know. I probably just embarrassed myself. But Javier. Anyway, I hear he's pretty much a big capitalist.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so what we want to talk about today that has to do with real estate fail is something pretty important. And one of the things that I do every day when I get this, and I get it paper. I get paper and ink.
Delivered on the front porch.
Yep. As I go down the column and see what the headlines are, which I recommend. If you're any kind of an entrepreneur, it's like something you got to do. But anyway, what we want to talk about is Japanese jet fighters fired warning flares at a Russian military reconnaissance plane. I didn't even know Japan had jet fighters. Did you?
I mean,
did Japan have jet fighters?
It makes sense.
I didn't know that. I've never seen a Japanese jet fighter. I mean, all the only aircraft I've seen from Japanese is like World War II footage, with all of the aircraft and everything. I didn't know they had jet fighters. No Godzilla?
Quagmire?
Godzilla not coming out helping them? No? Okay. All right, let's get serious and talk about the real estate fail. So what we really want to talk about is an article, and this is in the Tuesday, September 24th edition, and the headline of the article is Fed Cut Interest Rates Too Late for Many Real Estate Owners. Fed cut interest rates too late for many real estate owners. And what the article goes on to say is that too little, too late with the interest rate cuts, and what that trickles down into is now some lower loan payments for many commercial property owners and multifamily owners, especially that are on an interest rate sensitive kind of loan program. It's kind of too little, too late. What was told me when I was very, very young by an old man that has stuck with me for a long time is the horse is already out of the barn. The horse is out of the barn, Trot. And that's really what that headline says when it comes to commercial real estate. And so they're right about that. And you and I have talked about it. And we're like, yeah, they're right. I mean, the horse is out of the barn. It is too little, too late. I mean, there will be some owners, and we know some of them actually, that they're going to, comes at the right time for them. They've been treading water for a long time. for a couple of years at least, and they're going to now be able to tread a little bit lighter. They're not out of the wood, they're not out of the water yet, but they're going to be able to tread a little bit lighter. So there are going to be some benefits from it. But yeah, overall, they're right. So what does this have to do with real estate fail? What does this have to do with the topic of our podcast? Does it have to do with, some real estate has already pretty much failed and some owners have pretty much failed? Yeah, there's some of that. I mean, if you read the article, it does what you typically article like this does. Try it. You've read it. It goes into.
They mentioned, a couple property owners that went belly up in like July. So obviously that's too late.
They give you examples. Yeah. Of people. Here's Joe Spadats, and here's what happened with him in his office tower, and he doesn't own it anymore, and it's too late. So they give you examples like you think they would give you. But here's something that they don't give you that's really pertinent to this article that's not really being talked about right now. But it's being talked about. Is behind closed doors a little am I exaggerating a little bit when I say that?
I think so.
Okay.
I think of almost like the CIA.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Maybe industry.
Yeah,
here's the talk in the industry, behind the scenes in the industry that you're not hearing about. But it has a lot to do with real estate fail. It's very important to know, especially if you either own multifamily or even any other kind of commercial investment real estate, or you plan on owning it. And the biggest challenge that you see out in the marketplace right now, and you'll see it going into next year, that apartment community owners are going to have now. They have it now, but you're not hearing a lot about them having it now. And they'll have it even more going into next year. You'll hear about it a little bit more next year. But the talk behind the scenes is simply this: how much faster expenses at pretty much every single apartment community or commercial property, no matter its size, by the way, how much faster expenses are going up compared to income. And it's at a racing pace that expenses are going up much faster than income is. And this is whether you own a duplex or whether you own 2,000 units. It's the same thing. And this is something we've been freaking battling this, man, for a couple of years. And we're winning the battle. But there's a lot of people that it's the 10th round. They've been hitting the head 65 times. They're really wobbly in the ring, and they don't really have much more time left. That's the talk behind the scenes. And so talk a little bit about that. So in other words,
we've seen
talk about examples of what kind of expenses that we're seeing that are just skyrocketing, going up 30, 40, 50, 100% maybe in a year. Talk about that.
Well, the biggest one has been habitational insurance expenses. We saw 3 years ago, we saw probably anywhere from 40 to 70% increases. Mm-hmm. And then, the carriers are saying, hey, this is only going to happen one time. Well, then the next year, same thing happened. And then, we get the same response. And then now we're going on year 3 and it's still the same exact thing. So it's really increased 40%, then another 40, and then another 40 from that. So that's the biggest expense that we've seen just skyrocket.
Yeah, let me interject something because I know you're going to hit a couple more too that we've really been that we're aware of, just because of course we're in it with our properties day after day. But talking with, again, behind the scenes, talking with people like us with what's going on out there. It used to be. With property casualty insurance, you had many choices. Just like with residential, just like your home, you had just dozens and dozens of insurance companies to choose from. And in a way, the multifamily market is very similar now to what I would call California wildfire insurance or Florida hurricane insurance, which really translates into a couple things. Number one, there's hardly anybody around that wants to cover you anymore. A lot of the companies have pulled out. Too much risk with multifamily properties. And by the way, these risks are more or less weather related than anything else. So that's number one. They've pulled out. Number two, those that are left over, and there's less than a handful that are left over, typically, less than a handful. The rates that they're quoting you take into account that they're the last game in town. You've reached the last town that has water and gas, and you got 2,000 more miles to go. And of course, they're charging you $1 million for a gallon of water and $1 million for a gallon of gas. That's pretty much the way it is. That's what's happening. And so what Trot said is exactly right. Rates are going up 40%, another year 40%, another year 40%. So within a 2 or 3 year period, you're up over 100%. We have properties that we own right now where our insurance rates are higher than what our property taxes are. And by the way, here's the thing. This is not about, oh, maybe you're not working hard enough to find the right carrier. Maybe you need to shop around a little bit, Darren. No, that's not it. We've done the shopping.
And still doing.
And how many, just out of, how many insurance agents, brokers, carriers, just ballpark, have we talked to over the last year? Just throw a number out.
20 plus.
Oh, man. It's like easily 3 times that if you count how many times we've reached out to try to get some help. And look, when we're having this conversation with you, when we sit down with other owners like us, we got owners saying, well, are you interested in maybe buying my property? I'm not seeing any end in sight here. I'm having real big problems. I got to cover my properties. They got to be insured. I got to protect them, but at what cost? And now I'm not, there's no cash flow. As a matter of fact, I got to go to my partners. I got to go to my capital partners, and I got to say, hey, we need an extra $100,000, $500,000, $1 million in order to kind of get through the next few months. So of course, when that happens, we start getting inquiries. We just got one yesterday, as a matter of fact, on a 48 unit community, I think. Yeah, where we're seeing this and this is going down. So that's the insurance part. But what other expense line items are just flying up there like crazy, faster than what you were able to raise rental rates? Talk about one or two.
The biggest one that's other than insurance that really blown my mind are the cost of materials and wages. So any really repair and maintenance that you have to do to your property. Let's say a new AC condenser was $2,000 2 years ago, and that includes the labor. Now it's $5,000.
Yeah, so let's use that one as a quick example. So he has a really good one right there. And everything's relative. So whether you were in California or New York or Texas or Minnesota, doesn't. So the pricing I'm going to mention, it's all relative. So we're here in Iowa. So we could get a central air unit compressor, that you see outside the building that provides and cools the unit through the furnace. A couple of years ago, we could get a new one, an old one replaced, and a new one put in and installed for roughly about $2,500. Roughly.
I mean, I remember seeing invoices for $1,800, as low as $1,800.
So let's just say $2,000.
Yeah.
$2,000. Okay. What are we seeing today in terms of cost?
Minimum $4,800.
We're minimum. 3 times higher almost. We're 2 times higher. So it's gone up 100% in 2 years. And it's going and what are they telling us is going to happen next year?
Same thing.
It's going to go up another 20% next year.
Right.
Okay? And so that one little example that I just gave you with the little air conditioning unit, we're paying $2,000 more. Well, just think if you own 12 units and you've got to replace 4 air conditioning condensers next year. So that's $8,000 you're spending just on that. And does that increase the value of your property? No. It doesn't increase the value of anything.
Right.
Okay. And just think if you own like 200 units,
right,
and the expense on that. And that's just one small example that we're seeing with materials, the cost of materials and labor. It's absolutely astounding now what it costs to get something replaced or something fixed.
Right.
Yeah. Throw another one out there as an example. That's just gone rocket. It's like rocketing up there in terms of expense and how fast it's going.
This one's a little bit more market specific because we don't do a whole lot of business outside of where we're at.
Yeah.
But another big one's been for us, property taxes have been
property
huge.
taxes. That's actually been a big one. Here's what's going on with property taxes. And you can't really blame the assessors for this, the tax assessors. They're doing their job. when they do this. So here's what happens. There's been, maybe not over the last year, but let's say 2021, 22, and 23. There was a lot of overbidding, overpaying, bidding properties up and buying properties by investors. And so when you've got a property sale that comes down the road, I'm the assessor, I'm sitting at my desk, I'm working away, and this property sale comes in at $100,000 a unit, when a lot of the comparable properties around the area are assessed at $70,000 a unit. Well, what the hell am I going to do? I'm not going to keep all the other ones at $70,000 a unit. If I got these big sales coming in and proving to me I need to raise what?
Rents.
The assessed value, right? I need to raise the assessed value. So the assessed value is going up and up and up. So if I'm the assessor, I got no choice but to raise the assessed value. And as the assessor, I know that my city or county, we got a budget, right? And that budget is primarily fueled by property taxes, especially when it comes to schools in many locations. And so if I know that's the case, and I see these sales coming down the road where XYZ company overpaid 20% and paid $240,000 a unit for a property in a market where these properties typically trade at $180,000 a unit, I got to raise everybody's assessed value to the $200,000+ a unit. That's what happens. And that's what we're seeing. And that's why you're seeing a lot of these big property tax jumps. I mean, big ones. 15, 20, 25, 30. We have a property. The taxes went up 80% in 1 year. 80%. Now, here's what's funny. I'm pretty good at appealing property taxes, right? So I get in front of the assessor and the Iowa Board of Appeals, and here's the reasons why you need to lower our assessed value and we need to pay less in taxes. And 90% of the time I'm successful. 90+% of the time I'm successful. However, even when they go up 80%, if all of the comparable sales around there that are coming into the assessor's office are showing an 80% increase, what the hell ammunition do I got?
Yeah.
I got nothing. And that's what we're seeing out there. So, man, you hit 3 line items on the head, and there's more. We haven't just hit the only things. It's not just those 3.
It's basically everything.
Everything.
It's not, yeah.
So here's how expenses are going. Whoosh, okay?
Yeah, right.
Here's how rents are going. That's what's happening. So this gap is getting wider and wider and wider. And at the same time, yeah, rates have come down, but we're still in a higher interest rate environment than we were just a few years ago. So you throw all these things together, and you've got too late for many real estate owners. This is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of real estate owners where it's maybe not quite too late, but we're getting pretty close. It's the 10th round. They're in the ring. They've been hit in the head 6,500 times. They're rocking back and forth. They're still standing up. But man, it's getting really, really close. And that's why not only are we getting more and more inquiries into our office about, hey, you guys have an interest in buying my property? That's happening, and we'll see it even more next year. We'll see it even more. And by the way, just as a side note, if you are one of these owners and you're relating to everything that we're saying, because we're going through this too. If you're relating to anything that we're saying here, and you've got one of these properties or a portfolio where you're like, yeah, I really should be doing something, our contact information is here. Call us, get in touch with us. We'd love to have a conversation with you about, possibly buying your property. So we want to make sure that we mention that as well. So just to kind of wrap this episode up, we've talked about real estate fail and how we're going to see more failures coming, which is kind of the point of this podcast. It's a lot of things that have been discussed kind of behind the scenes that we know about, and we don't want anybody to fail. We're not here, mongering everybody. That's not the point, but this is what's going on And if you're smart and if you're looking at thinking of investing in multifamily real estate, this is some things that you're going to want to know. What else should people know or think about or take into account when it comes to what we're talking about?
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting because, how can you raise rents at the same rate as expenses? And the answer is right now you can't. But then how is that possible to do it? And really it comes from, how much are people getting paid? Well,
excellent point.
And I don't see a world where, we see really anywhere close to the increases we've seen for people, people's wages at their job to be able to pay the rent.
Man, that's great. That's great insight. That's great insight because the response that I get when I'm talking to people about this that aren't really necessarily in our world is simply, why don't you just raise rents? Well, just raise your rent. I mean, all you got to do to cover the expenses is raise rents. Well, if, as Trot says, the income for many people has hit a ceiling, that's not an automatic answer, and it's not doable in many cases to be able to recover that, because there are many people that are tenants that have capacity issues too with the amount of income they got coming in, right?
Right.
Yeah, and is that going up a lot?
No, and I don't really see it going up all that quick
because their expenses are getting higher.
Right.
So, we can go into the inflation and all that. And so there's that part of it too. So that's why this is a quandary, I think I would want to use.
It's a good word. Yeah.
It really is. And so what it's really going to come down to over this year, for the rest of this year into next year, is how good of an operator are you? How good of a manager and leader are you? How good are you going to be going through this and working through this? Okay, that's really a lot of it's going to come down to that. Not, having some whiz-bang magic pill idea that'll fix everything. How good are you at this? And whether you're looking to buy a property, you're looking to invest with somebody else, or whatever, you better make damn sure that they're really, really good at this. Because this is going to be really a big deal, and there's going to be more success driven from really good operators that you're going to see over the next couple of years than really anything else, I think. Right. So Trot, thanks for the info, thanks for the input, and thank you for the feedback on real estate fail. And we hope that we provided you some good content and some good information on what's going on out there in the multifamily and commercial real estate space. So I'm going to wrap up this episode, Trot, of the Heartland Multifamily Show, the place
for all things multifamily.
For all things multifamily. Thank you very much. We'll see you all later. Bye-bye. If you enjoyed this video and you want to make multifamily a bigger part of your investing world, make sure you click here on this video to discover the 3 easy ways to invest in and own your own multifamily property.